The elders of the Kael'thari spoke her name only in whispers, as if sound itself could summon the terror that walked on two legs. Seren, the Fleshborn. The demon of Red Rivers. They said she could tear through starship hulls with her bare hands, that her kind knew no fear, felt no pain, and showed no mercy. Rin had heard the stories since he could understand speech. The humans were monsters from a death world, survivors of a planet so hostile that evolution had forged them into living weapons. Their bones were denser than reinforced steel. Their muscles could snap a Kael'thari's spine like dry grass. They healed from wounds that would kill any civilized species 3 times over, and Seren was the worst of them all. The war had lasted 3 cycles. The Kael'thari Confederacy had made the mistake of attacking a human colony world, believing the scattered settlements would be easy prey. They had not understood what desperation could birth in a species that had clawed its way up from extinction dozens of times on its homeworld. Seren had been there, a lone human soldier who had held an entire mountain pass for 6 days while colonists evacuated. The Kael'thari had sent 3 battalions. None returned. The recordings showed only glimpses, a shadow moving faster than targeting systems could track, the screams of warriors, and blood, so much blood painting the rocks in colors the Kael'thari had no names for. After that, the Confederacy sued for peace. The terms were harsh but fair. The humans wanted no territory, no tribute. They wanted only one thing, for the Kael'thari to remember. To never forget what happened when humanity's young were threatened. As part of the peace accord, human observers were stationed on Kael'thari worlds. Integration, they called it. Understanding. The elders called it occupation by another name, and they had sent Seren to Rin's world. The colony was young, barely 2 generations old, nestled in the green valleys of Kael'thar Prime. When word spread that the flesh-born demon herself would arrive, parents clutched their cubs close. Warriors sharpened their claws, though they knew it would make no difference. Rin remembered the day she arrived. The transport ship had settled in the central clearing, and she had emerged alone. No weapons visible, though the elders swore she needed none. She stood a head taller than the tallest Kael'thari, her frame lean but radiating coiled power. Her skin was dark, scarred in places where even human healing had its limits. Her eyes, those terrible human eyes that faced forward like a predator's, swept across the gathered crowd with an intensity that made grown warriors step back. But Rin had not been afraid. He had been curious. Over the following weeks, Seren kept to herself, living in a small dwelling on the colony's edge. She filed reports, attended council meetings, and spoke little. The adults gave her wide berth, their fear a palpable thing. But cubs, as cubs do, were less burdened by history. Rin had found her one evening near the forest boundary. She sat on a fallen log, staring at the sunset with an expression Rin couldn't decipher. He approached slowly, his small paws crunching on the undergrowth. She didn't turn, but she spoke, "You shouldn't be out here alone. There are predators in these woods." Her voice was softer than he expected, not the growl of the monster from the stories. "You're out here alone," Rin said. Tilting his head, she almost smiled. Almost. "I am the predator in these woods. Little one." Rin sat down beside her, his tail curling around his legs. "Are you really a demon?" Seren was quiet for a long moment. "Your people think so. But what do you think?" She looked down at him then, and for the first time, Rin saw something in those predator eyes that the stories had never mentioned. Sadness. Deep, aching sadness, I think, she said slowly. "That I did what I had to do, and I think I'll carry it forever." After that evening, Rin visited often. He would find Seren at odd hours, sometimes working on human technology that hummed and blinked with incomprehensible purpose, other times simply sitting in silence. She began to teach him things, about Earth, about human history, about a species that had survived ice ages and plagues and wars that made the Kael'thari conflict look like a border skirmish. "We're not invincible," she told him once. "We just refuse to die." The other cubs grew bolder, following Rin's example. Slowly, carefully, they approached the demon. She showed them pictures of Earth, vast oceans, towering mountains, cities of glass and steel. She told them stories of human children, not so different from Kael'thari cubs, playing in streets and dreaming of stars. The adults watched with growing unease, but they could not deny what they saw. the demon of Red Rivers sitting cross-legged in the grass, surrounded by cubs who climbed on her shoulders and asked endless questions with the fearlessness of youth. Then came the night of the fire. A storm had swept in from the eastern ranges, bringing lightning that struck the colony's grain storage. Flames erupted, spreading faster than the suppression systems could handle. The adults organized evacuation, but panic spread as quickly as the fire. In the chaos, a creche building, where the youngest cubs sheltered, became surrounded by flames. Rin heard the screams. He saw the adults trying to reach the entrance, driven back by heat and smoke. He saw warriors collapse from smoke inhalation, their biology not built for such toxins. And then he saw Seren run into the fire. She didn't hesitate. Didn't pause to assess. She simply moved, disappearing into smoke so thick it looked solid. The adults shouted, certain they had just witnessed the demon's death. But humans, as Rin had learned, refused to die. She emerged minutes later, her clothing scorched and melting, her skin blistered and bleeding. In her arms were 4 cubs, unconscious but alive. She laid them gently on the grass, then turned and ran back into the inferno. 3 more trips. Each time she emerged more damaged, moving slower, her breath ragged and labored. But each time she carried more cubs to safety. On her final trip, the building's roof collapsed behind her. She stumbled, fell to her knees, and gently placed the last 2 cubs on the ground before collapsing herself. The adults rushed forward with medical supplies, but their hands shook as they worked. They had never treated human injuries before. Seren's body was doing things that defied their understanding, already beginning to heal itself even as new burns formed. Rin pushed through the crowd and knelt beside her. Her eyes were barely open, unfocused with pain. "Why?" he whispered. "They call you a demon. They fear you. Why would you do this?" Seren's burned lips moved. Her voice was barely audible. "Because they're children. Because I remember the ones I couldn't save. Because maybe, if I save enough, it'll balance out." And then Rin saw something that shattered every story, every whispered legend, every nightmare tale. He saw tears cutting tracks through the soot on her face. The demon of Red Rivers was crying, not from pain. Rin understood that somehow. But from something deeper, from memories of war and loss, from the weight of what she had done and what had been done to her, from the terrible burden of being human in a universe that demanded both monster and savior. Rin reached out with a small paw and touched her hand. "You're not a demon," he said clearly, loud enough for the gathered adults to hear. "Demons don't cry for us." Seren's eyes focused on him, and through the pain, through the tears, she smiled. A real smile, perhaps the first anyone on Kael'thar Prime had seen from her. "Then what am I, little one?" Rin thought about everything he had learned. About Earth and its endless struggles. About humans who carried their dead and remembered their enemies. About a species that could be brutal beyond measure, yet gentle beyond reason. "You're human," Rin said simply. "And I think that's more complicated than we understood," the adults murmured among themselves. The elders would debate this for cycles to come. But in that moment, watching Seren cry for cubs who were not her own, of a species that had called her monster, something shifted. The war was over. But perhaps finally the peace was beginning.